Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Brahmanandam Param Sukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Vandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasyavilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigунarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Om. Eruditions to Sadguru, who is Brahman, the giver of supreme bliss, embodiment of pure consciousness, one without a second, vast as the ether, infinite, eternal, beyond the three gunas and their modifications, the supreme preceptor. Yoga Vasishtha Utpatti Prakarana, section 9. Profound insight is being given into the state of enlightenment, the goal of life. Insight into Brahman, the Absolute. And therefore topic is on a very advanced level. When a person attains, Vasishtha goes on imparting this knowledge to Sri Rama. Rama in this stage is not God the Rama, but as ideal aspirant. Who can play the part of ideal aspirant in the idealistic way? God. That shouldn't confuse you, I'm just humoring you. If anyone becomes an ideal aspirant, he is Rama potential. And when you attain enlightenment, there is nothing but Rama. So any soul, any human being, when he attains enlightenment, he is the absolute Brahman. He doesn't become Brahman. It's a revelation dawns in his heart that Brahman alone is reality. So easy understanding. Think of reflected suns in jars of water. Each soul is like a reflected sun. And a celestial voice comes of the Vedas. Thou art that. For each reflected sun, the message, I am that. First it enters the mind with a problem. I who am confined to this bucket, facing so many other buckets. How can I become that? It's impossible. I can become a better bucketed soul. So let me stay with becomings. The process of becoming is led by karma. Therefore, the mind is constantly involved with the concept of becoming. Even in the idea of enlightenment, the mind tries to figure out how will it look like if I became enlightened? Will I be sitting close to Lord Vishnu? Where will sit Saraswati Devi, Lakshmi Devi? What a wonderful sight. Simple point to understand that as long as you are using intellect, which is perfectly normal, you have to use your intellect. But whatever you grasp by that intellect becomes a basis for your spiritual advancement, but it doesn't become your goal. Whatever intellect grasps, it's called indirect knowledge. Now, process has to continue until you attain direct knowledge. In the realm of indirect knowledge, you constantly become things that you never knew, now you know it. A big change has occurred. Liberation is not becoming. Liberation is movement of intellect that turns into intuition. As long as your intellect is intellectualized, I bring out a special English grammar. In that realm of intellectualization, there is no liberation. Because there is always something that you don't know. Intellect cannot grasp complete knowledge. But when intellect turns into intuition, but that again, movement is progressive. It doesn't happen that one day you meditated and then next day intellect has become intuition. And immediately you go and declare it and go viral. But it begins to go on happening in many degrees. So much so that an aspirant advancing doesn't know. Because when you become, ego is constantly enjoying it and becomes swelled up with what you become. But when you move in the spiritual progress, ego begins to diffuse itself. There is self-effacement. Therefore, who is there to assert that I have attained enlightenment? It's an inner, deep-rooted experience. The sages of great enlightenment, in their behavior, in their activity, they are humblest of people. And if you ask them, have you attained enlightenment? They can't give you a quick answer. When did you attain enlightenment? How did you feel when you attained enlightenment? Ask all those questions and find nothing. Say, oh, this person is a dumb. So this is most important point to understand, the difference between becoming and being. In the realm of karma, you are constantly becoming. Once you were a child, then you become a kid, then become youthful, then become aged. And you can figure it out what happens after. Go into another embodiment. In this embodiment, you didn't have much power, etc. Next embodiment, you are becoming a very great personality, power, politics. There is constant becoming. But being, all the reflected suns, when they discover their being, it is the sun. It's not the result of karma. Sun is already there. Eternal reality. Your essential reality is ever present. And your mind is creating a drama. Mind is playing a cinema show over a screen. Your essential reality is the screen. But when you are working with your mind and don't know anything beyond your mind, then you are trapped in the show that the mind is constantly projecting. So while the mind projects the show, the reality never goes away. To the mind, illusion of world experience comes like bubbles bursting. World experience means immense past, unending future, countless variations. All this is world process. And it has many layers. You cannot have complete grasp of it. So that goes on. But while that goes on through your conditioned mind, soul, based on conditioned mind, goes on experiencing world within world, countless. But all the time the soul is nothing but Brahman, the absolute self. That's what this particular chapter is trying to bring to your mind. Conditioned by mind. Remember, mind is the cause of bondage and release. Man eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayo. Mind is the cause of your bondage. And it is mind that enables you to attain liberation. As long as you allow the mind to continue to stay in its structure, dense structure, as long as you allow your mind to stay that way, you are experiencing bondage, because all that mind will bring to you will be in the world of time, space, causation, and will not be permanent. Always remember the screen and the projected drama. Drama, no matter how fascinating and wonderful, it's not going to be the steady screen. Screen is the only thing that all the time it is giving reality to the drama. The screen is supporting every image you see, every scene you see. The screen is supporting it. But you don't see the screen. You are trapped by the illusions projected by your mind. That's called vritti-based knowledge. Vritti-based knowledge is like a cinema show. And that vritti-based knowledge is completely effaced. At that state, when that happens, there is nothing but the screen. The goal is to realize that reality is not in the realm of thought waves of the mind. And when we talk about mind has to be effaced, all that point will be explained in the Yoga Vasishtha in different sections. Again and again they will be explained. But just now to understand, mind being effaced has 3 stages. Manonash, Vasanakshaya, and Tattva Gyan. Those who study Kundalini, Manonash begins at the navel center as Kundalini begins to break through the bondage of karma. Kriya Shakti, that's what operates at the navel center. Karma Yoga is directly related to this process of Manonash. What does Manonash imply? Literally it means destruction of the mind. But literal is only allegorical. Manonash means what sustains the obscurity, just like supposing there is a cloud, what sustains the intensity of the cloud, opacity of the cloud? Moisture. If moisture is taken away, you say mano-nash of the cloud. Cloud is there, but now it is not obstructing the sun, but rather allowing the sun to pour through and feeling joyous, simmering, dancing, no matter how things are in the world. That mind sees the reality as the sky. And the sky has no loss, no gain. All things happen in the sky. But the sky remains just the same. This is the ideal of mano-nash, described with the story of Ramayana. Prasannatam yanagata abhishekata tatha namamle banavasa dukkata. Rama was given, he is declared to be the heir apparent to the throne, a very great position. And Rama accepts it without being elated, as if nothing new has happened. And very next day, Rama is banished by very cruel plot that went on in the royal palace. Very cruel. And when Rama was informed that he is banished to the forest for 14 years, he takes it with the same face. That's the description of the ideal mano-nash. All this, if you start working upon it, they will appear absolute impossibility. But you must realize, as all things of your personality, even your physical body, are fashioned and sustained by cosmic hand. The very same hand that created the stars and luminous suns have created your gentle toes and nails. So, with that insight, as you begin to start with satsanga, amazing changes begin to occur in your understanding. Things that were completely impossible to understand, you begin to grasp it. And it doesn't require time for it, because the reality is not growing in a tree. It's always there. So that's, in simpler terms, if you do not allow your mind to be shaken by raga and dvesha, again, the term shaken has to be understood properly. If you do not shake at all, then you are paralyzed, you are sick. And there will be no growth. You are stone. But if you shake in such a way that the tree goes on breaking up and new branches develop out of the broken bones, and the whole growth becomes complicated, then that is to be remedied. That type of shaking should stop. Do not, and coming back to more subtle, simple point, the world presents situations of raga and dvesha. Pleasant situation, the mind becomes so fascinated and immediately start planning. How can I secure this? How now? Forever. And mind puts in much of its energy, and the whole personality creates many plots to secure it. But in divine plan, things don't happen according to your expectations. Mm-hmm. Baby doesn't grow according to its own expectation. It grow under the motherly guidance. So then there are things happen that are not according to your expectation. Deep frustration, shocking situations. If you are not growing in a normal way, then each experience, too much happiness, makes you paralyzed to do anything else, makes you completely deluded. Too much adversity paralyzes you in another way. If the condition is like that, the tree will not be healthy, it will not grow. But if you restrict these two, shake a little, but come back, be flexible, both ways, with happiness and with frustrated situation. Shake, but don't get baked. If you come to that stage, that's called Manonash. You are practicing Manonash. When you become so deeply involved in that even the worst type of adversity does not make you deeply shaken. Outwardly you will be shaken like anybody else, but deeply you remain settled. And that's possible for anyone, because that's the reality within you. With Manonash comes, it opens the door. While Manonash is occurring, your subconscious is also getting purified gradually. Otherwise, subconscious goes on hoarding your impressions of attachment, impressions of hatred, impressions of fear. The subconscious is filled with lots of junk. But as Manonash is practiced, subconscious begins to develop Shubhavasana, purified impressions. Impressions are in two stages. Deep impressions are called samskaras. They're like seeds. Out of those seeds, some seeds are like a sprouting stage. They begin to show up their little nose. They're tender shoots. Those are called vasanas. Vasana term comes from the word vas, smell. When a plant comes out of the earth, if it's onion and garlic, you smell it. The vasanas, impressions that are deep in your unconscious, you don't smell them. But some of them begin to come out. You begin to develop that awareness. How does the vasana taste? How does it smell? If you have sattvic vasana, there is a different type of, you have sandalwood around you. The rajasic vasana, it is mixed up. Tamasic, lot of garlic. I'm joking. Nothing against garlic. Some karmic movement comes through your subconscious, it's joyous and thrilling, it's inspiring. Some come and it's problematic. It can be thrilling, it may not be thrilling. And third type, it is not your choice, it is being dumped upon you. So, the what I have described now, vasana akshaya. When vasanas become sattvic, purified. Now, you are not restricted by the subconscious impurities. Impurities, you recognize them, you always observe them, you see them fading away in degrees, and you go on sublimating them. So that type of life becomes effective. And life becomes more joyous when you see yourself emerging out of, like the light sees itself emerging out of smoke. Lot of smoke, but then flame comes up. Lastly, Tattva Gyan. No smoke, only light. Intellect comes to intuitional level. And ego is transcended. Day by day, you are given that experience. When you go to deep sleep, your ego is transcended. Very simple. All that you need is to lie down in your bed. But real attainment requires your whole yogic involvement. And if it happens, then you don't have to physically sleep. That peace that you enjoy in deep sleep becomes your reality. That's called sthita prajna. Described that while all are awake, he sleeps. The soul, the reality of the soul is the absolute self. But as long as the soul is conditioned by avidya, ignorance, the Sanskrit word is jiva. Jiva is subject to bhav vikaras. Bhav vikaras refer to, let me give it in a simple way, there are 6 bhav vikaras, 6 modifications. First, birth. Second, after baby is born, baby doesn't come with any name. You have to give a name to it. So the second stage comes, you give a name to the baby. First one called Janam, second one Asti. Once the name has been given, people know by what name you celebrate the baby's birth. Otherwise, baby may be. The difference, baby and baby. I mean, given name, that's Asti. The existence of a personality. Now, next, a gradual growth, vriddhi. Grow as children growing. But that growth comes to another stage when you become from child to youth, a transition called viparinam, a special modification. Then as you go on enjoying your youthful period, suddenly you start seeing your hair turning grey. Or your tooth begins to shake. Or your eyes need spectacles. And that aging process comes to an end, death. So birth, then existence of a personality by name, then growing as a child, transition into youth, movement towards aging, death. This is easily seen in every individual. But every object goes through the same thing. The day you have a log of wood before you, and you have planned to turn it into a table or into some furniture type of, and as you work out the furniture, birth has come. It has taken a birth. Now it has been specialized, it goes into a particular room, is a private room under the computer. So it has been given a name. So first it came, birth, now it gets a person a kind of a name, identity. Now while you are working day by day, it is also aging. It may outlive you, but still it is aging. And every piece of matter ultimately gets disintegrated, comes to an vinash. So these 6 bhava vikaras apply to everything in this world. O Ram, all your experience, all your actions are essentially pure awareness. Understanding the point, people say, how do you experience objects? Yeah, because your eyes, you touch, senses bring you the experience. But the answer is childish. Senses don't do that. Sometimes you are facing a big festivity. Certain things happen right in front of you. And someone asks, did you see that? No, I was thinking of something else. So senses are not the ones. Mind has to be in connection with the senses. But then mind again, if intellect is not operating through your mind, you are senile. Mind is there, but it doesn't have any rationality in it. Intellect has to be there. So intellect is the light behind your mind. But even that intellect has a cosmic source to give its existence, give its light. And that cosmic source ultimately is God. So who is experiencing the world, if you ask from a mature point? The answer is God. Why is he experiencing the world? Does he need it? Understand? When you look at all the illuminations, say, who has created all these illuminations? Answer, the sun. Now the question, does he know he has created all this? Your question is childish. He didn't create them. They are all manifesting. Sun alone is real. So from sun's stage, nothing is happening. But when you are using your mind and interpreting the sun according to the concept of your mind, simple way to describe, when the sun begins to come into a little jar of water, reflection, your mind forms like a water. God's divine self shines through your mind as a reflected sun. That reflected sun is what your personality is. And to that reflected sun, all these experiences apply of birth, death, misery, progress, success, all the story of the world. And all this goes on. But the sun remains ever the same. These radiations of the sun that express in the world, they do not deplete the sun. I'm talking in a figurative way. Sun remains the same. The sun is not the creator. Put it in a more easier understanding. If you put on glasses, colored glasses, within a moment the whole world will seem colored. And if you forgot that you have put on the glasses, you will ask, who painted all this? If the person is not advanced, he also has his own colored glass. He gives you amazing answers. Million answers about the world, which basically nobody has colored it. It is based on the glasses you are wearing. The world you are experiencing based on your mind. And mind is the glasses. No two persons are experiencing the same world. O Rama, you are that pure consciousness underlying all forms of awareness. Every experience is an act of awareness. You touch something, you are aware of that touch. You think thoughts, you are aware of your thoughts. Awareness is underlying everything. Just like a screen underlies all projections. No matter whatever is projected on the cinema show, screen is behind it. And that screen exists in itself. It is not dependent on those projections. So all you are experiencing are magic of awareness. And that awareness doesn't depend upon all the different experiences you have through your mind, through your senses, through your ego. Therefore, O Rama, you are essentially Brahman, the Absolute, Tattvamasi. Thou art that. And as such, you are devoid of birth and death. You are anadi, beginningless. Anything that begins will end. So better don't start from the beginning. You are Nitya, means eternal, ever present. Mangalamaya, you are embodiment of goodness, auspiciousness. The sun is light, all light. God is all light, not physically, mystically. Nirmal, you are absolutely void of all impurities. If you don't attain that, you are not normal. Nirmal and normal have come from the same source. To be normal in a really idealistic way is to be void of all malas. And the Spanish carry the word malo, same mala term. That divine self, amog, means unflinching, infallible, immutable, unshakable. In other words, the security that everyone wants to have in the world, there is no place that doesn't shake. There is absolute security is nowhere in the world. No matter how best of karmas you have done and wonderful conditions have come, because there is always a time limit. However, that question of shaking doesn't arise with Brahman. Eternal, unshakable, supremely adorable. Everything that you adore deep down, you are adoring God, because, put it in another way, Upanishads have given all things you love. Love, real love is that which is eternal. But there is a human urge to find that eternal love. I am that absolute love. That urge becomes distorted by the mind. And whatever seems pleasant, you begin to develop the concept, I am loving that. In what I am implying, that in any act of love, you are really being finger pointed at the divine love. It's God's presence in human beings that make them lovable. God's presence in animals makes them lovable. So what you are loving is not the physical eyes. You are loving the soul shining through the eyes. You are not loving the physical bodies of how soft and cozy and cute. I'm talking about cats and all animals, human beings as well. The real love, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. For the sake of the self, because self is that your source. That's the urge, is to discover your absolute love. Because that urge through Maya goes into millions of things that you begin to love. And every soul, through repeated embodiments, have gone into millions of experiences. The filmy song in India, दिल के टुकड़े हजार हुए, कुछ इधर गिरे, कुछ उधर गिरे, which means the tragedy of amorousness. The heart that wanted to be fulfilled by love goes through experiencing everything that you consider your heart, a piece of that heart broke. Every time you find what you have loved separates from you. Everyone is conditioned by karma. And even before karma separates, people get separated by their own minds. And when that happens, dil ke tukde, the heart breaks down. In one lifetime, how many times your heart has broken? But imagine 1,000,000 lifetimes. And if you don't attain the real source of love, God, then this will go on. And for that heart, there is no heart transplant. I'm joking. That God, Brahman, is a supreme, absolute cause behind all causes. That Brahman is absolute awareness. O Rama, that is what you are. And don't be surprised, that is what everyone is. And don't be surprised, not everyone, but every atom of this universe is nothing but the divine self. That for easy understanding, think of your dream experience. All your dream is expression of you, your own consciousness. Not just the mountains in your dream, or rivers or flowers, but even roaches and frogs. Not even that. Even every little stuff, every little matter, every particle of dust of your dream is you. If you understand that, apply that in a broader way. All your experiences through your mind and senses. That's all that human being is, experiencing through a nervous system. And yet the glory of the nervous system that has created scriptures like Yoga Vash. That are nerves, all nervous system. And we'll conclude at this time. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.